It's a beautiful Tuesday morning. Welcome to Atlantic Television Network Blowouts. This is a syndicated live program of the network. We will hold conversation on special interest topics. We bring you news, events, and stories through correspondent reports, expert opinions, and stakeholders analysis. Today on Atlantic Television Network Blowouts, we bring you Anchor's Chat. Key suspects in DPO and machine killer speaks from hideouts. In Imo State, police arrest 18 suspected IPOB members over death of monarch. On orientation, Commission launches Disability Act into Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba languages. Presidential election, Odinkalo queries delay in release of CTC of Supreme Court judgments. In gender advocacy group calls for a federal government intervention.
That is amazing.
Honorable
You human
On the point of order.
Honorable
You understand.
on them. They are not picking our calls. They made up their minds.
So no agreement with the EU, but
Every day, our lives are changed by history,
We are one people, all of us.
leaders, politics,
Nobody's ambition is what the blood.
I have fought very firmly.
natural occurrence, war, and the world economy.
I belong to everybody and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.
Welcome back to Atlantic Television Network Blowout, and it's time for Anchor's Chat. And I'm sure you're seeing a gentleman seated beside me, majestic. Thank you for joining me on Anchor's Chat.
Good morning, Vivian, and thank you for having me. Good morning.
Why are you smiling like that?
Considering everything that's happening in the country, I am alive, I am well. It is very important that I smile.
Awesome, awesome. And that's a good message to someone out there who may not be feeling like it this morning. But from here in Rivers State, the suspected killer of the Division of Police Officer Bako and Bashim in the Ahoda East local government area of Rivers State gives Okpara the prime suspect itself in the crime. The notorious cultist, also known as General Tul Baba, wanted leader of the Iceland gang, also said he spoke with the late DPO hours before his death and also disclosed why his gang picked up arms after they were granted amnesty by the former administration. He said he returned to crime after his group submitted their weapons following amnesty granted them because the rival gang did not submit and were killing his members, including his younger brother, pointing out that the government didn't take any action against them and also denied involvement in the kidnapping, illegal bunkering, and related acts of criminality, noting that he was into the rigging business. Meanwhile, no fewer than 50 persons, including a monarch and former LGA chairman, are standing trial over the death of the gallant police officer, while the Rivers State Police Command has severally raided criminal hideouts in the Ahoda axis of the state and killed some suspects linked to the death. Yes. You will just wake up and hear that they sent this video, they are cutting off this person's head.
Exactly.
And I've always wondered, remember those days in Forces Avenue, this other station, you just wake up, you go on and you're like, Boko Haram sent video. Are you here? You know, information. These things are not supposed to be rocket science anymore. So when you come out to tell us that Tu Baba sent audio, and now, okay, let's talk about him denying it to tell us, yeah? But we're saying that in release of this audio, now they're not saying suspect, which is what is meant to be. He's still a suspect because he's yet to be properly prosecuted. However, there are about 50 persons or more who are already undergoing trial for this murder. So if the kingpin is coming out to tell us, oh, the reason, okay, let's look at the merits of some of the things he kind of pointed out. That he did surrender his arm in October 2009 when they submitted their arms.
And they were trying to take over
and they
his
were
territory.
killing, yes, and good. I think that's the best way to put
no,
it.
They tried to take over his territory. So
and then his brother was murdered in the process, so he had to go back in order to and send it out. How did they send it out? Because this is now raising a lot of questions. They made that video. They said, how did it get to the public?
No, you know, they have someone who recorded it, and he called himself American Computer. If you remember that video.
Good, yeah.
He said, so they can send materials from anywhere. I'm thinking, okay, you have someone who made this recording, and the person was seen with the main suspect. If I was the one making the recording, and you see, and this is me, it's me, and I'm seen with you, and you are my boss, how do you exonerate yourself from that?
You know, his second in command has been caught, yeah?
Yes.
Good.
So how do you exclude yourself
I'm not
from
even
the crime?
interested in him exonerating himself. I'm interested in some of the lackeys around apparatus to investigate, to pick out these guys, and you know what I mean. Look at it from this and his
whereabouts. So the police.
No, in order to also follow up, like I said, when you bring out some of this information to the public, what you're basically telling everyone is you received the information that was sent. Clearly, he sent that to the police and not to the public. I think we are having access to it because somehow somebody was meant to come to the public and all of that. But again, the concern is, I keep saying, we cannot be talking about security in 21st century or in 2023 without talking about digital security, because that is actually where security is right now. It's easy to figure some of these things out. And I've said, you can't... Maybe he sings at some point and they can figure out a way around it, but it's what it is. I just want to believe that, okay, like Ohanaeze has told President Buhari, Tinubu to give them a Christmas gift by releasing Nnamdi Kanu. I think we just want to ask for a Christmas gift from the Nigerian police by saying, get Tu Baba out, let's hear him talk one-on-one, let's understand what exactly
He should come say this in public. He should come to the TV stations. Please, Tu Baba, come out.
We just want to know who killed SP Bashim.
You might as well call us for an interview.
Absolutely. Let's get to the nitty-gritty.
Come out. Don't stay in the bushes and say, I did not do this, I did not do that.
Give us names.
Come out to the public.
Give us details, the proper details.
When you say give us names, that would be a different ballgame. Give us names.
And welcome back to Atlantic Television Network Blowout. And like I said, you can always watch us live from anywhere in the world. All you need to do is log on to our website, atlantictelevisionnetwork.tv, or you can download the app from the App Store if you don't have that already, ATN Live, or watch us live on Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network. And now we have Barrister Ayo Tamuna Young live in the studio, the State Director, National Orientation Agency. Good to have you here. Good morning, sir.
I'm delighted to be here too.
Compliments of the season.
Same thing.
From here to National Orientation Agency. Welcome, sir.
We receive with all gladness.
Okay. Okay. Now, let's remind everyone. The police command in Imo State says it arrested 18 hoodlums who are suspected to be members of indigenous people of Biafra over the killing of Division of Police Officer in charge of Ayazan Bise and Inspector of Police at Buek Petroleum Police Station, Ahiran Junction in Ayazun Bise, LGA, all in Imo State. In a statement signed by police spokesman Henry Okoye and made available to newsmen, said the police operatives fought gallantly, but unfortunately the DPO and the Inspector of Police paid the supreme price in the gun duel that ensued, while 2 police officers survived the attack. No stone will be left unturned, ensuring that the perpetrators of the dastardly act are made to face the full wrath of the law. Police operatives led by CP Aboki Danjuma on a confidence-building patrol in Ayazan Bise responded immediately and gave the hoodlums a hot chase, which forced them to flee with various degrees of gunshot injuries, abandoning some of their operational on motorcycles. The operatives were swiftly reinforced by the military led by Brigadier Commander 34 Artillery Brigade Obinze. Intense combing of the area is ongoing. Meanwhile, a total of 18 suspects have been arrested and are currently undergoing investigation. The command reiterates its commitment to collaborate with sister security agencies to provide adequate security while encouraging citizens, particularly residents of Ayazun Bise, to report any person seen with or treating gunshot injuries within their vicinity. Today's emergency line 0803-477-3600 and 0809-888-0197. All right. Let's contribute our quota in building the nation today by taking off from there. 18 suspected IPOB members have been picked up in respect to the murder of the 2 police officers in Abombise, local government area in the Imo State. Why do you think that it's beginning to look like every time any crime is committed in the Southeast, particularly
The IPOB and ESN, Eastern Security Network, are always being accused. The answer is very clear that they have been the main actors, you know, in the separatist fights. The fight for separatism in that region, and there's nobody that has that kind of facilities. We are not dealing with armed robbery, because if it is armed robbery, it will be very, very clear. But in this case, we are dealing with, you know, the attack on security agencies, and there has been a pattern. There has been a pattern, especially when such attacks take place. And up until now, you know that the pattern includes the fact that certain days are set apart as no market days. People should stay at home days. And you know, that is, we are talking about the business hub of the country, the commercial hub of the country. So normally the police, they have a trend, they follow pattern, they have established procedures when such things occur. The pattern has been that all kinds of, all forms of criminals, you know, criminal elements take on military camouflage. And in this context, apart from the military camouflage, they said they were also wearing the black and the black t-shirts, and which is also common with our Nigerian police. So anybody could fake security agencies, but the first pointer usually is to, especially in the the southeast is to the IPOB and the ESN. And you know that it should be a source of concern, because any moment from now, the Supreme Courts, should be delivering judgment. I think December 15th or thereabouts, yep, on the case of the leader of IPOB. And there is also the foreign wing, supposedly foreign wing, which the local wing of the IPOB, has disowned, which is the Simon Ekpa's wing, which actually came up in the briefing of the Chief of Defense Staff
at the National Assembly.
At the National Assembly. So all this adding up, when things like this happen, the tendency is to look at looking at the pattern. Who are the likely people that are supposed to do this? No. So that is what I think it is.
Now, the reason why you just made a critical point, the judgment for Nnamdi Kanu's appeal to the Supreme Court is coming up on the 15th of December. That is in about 2 weeks' time. Now, put that on one side and bring to the fore the question I asked earlier. It's beginning to look like every crime committed in the Southeast now have a name attached to it as ESN, IPOB. However, that is becoming a bit of a challenge because we don't know, IPOB is not written on anybody's face. There are no ID cards, any form of identity, tattoos, or something that you can say, okay, because this person has this tattoo, they are members of ESN or IPOB, as the case may be. Because these are Igbo young men and maybe young women, as a matter of fact, that are being captured as criminal elements as we speak. Like you said, because of maybe their leaders or their leaders' instructions or positions be proud to this, and they're beginning to see them in that light. But when you also put it across to say that these are not armed robbers, basically, and all of that, we saw what happened with the bank robbery and all of that. Police officers were killed and all of that. But that is police officers being killed in the line of duty. These men were also in the line of duty. Are we now, if we're coming back to the Southeast and in most states for it particularly, are we not creating a very ugly pattern that may come back to haunt us without properly investigating issues and giving a tag to these people? Or are we not saying in essence that being a separatist means that you're a criminal?
Over to refuel. So
there was a gun duel between them and these hoodlums.
They were trying to refuel. That was the clear narrative. And at the filling station, Boek filling station, and these guys came and opened fire on them. Now, the question is, at that locality, in that local government area, where this thing had occurred, I'm very sure there are indigenes of those local government areas that may have also been privy or say it the other way, that may have also observed some movements. And that is where, as citizens, we feel in our responsibility to our security agencies. They can't do everything alone.
So what would you have expected the citizens to do?
Yes, citizens, part of this is Ahiazo Junction. We are talking about a local government. This is in Imbise, actually.
Yeah.
Because Ahiara,
yes,
it's in Imbise. So, for this number of persons to be moving around, there's no way the citizens or the indigenes of that area wouldn't have known, even though they were in camouflage. So there's no way they wouldn't have known, at least to give some tips to security agencies. Now, the protection of lives and property is not only for security agencies. We also have to help the police to provide actionable intelligence. All
right, before you came on, we were talking about the person on Anchor's chat. Mr. Robinson and I were talking about the late SP Ann Bashim, how the key suspect is coming out to made a video and shared the video and was talking about how he is not involved, how he's not into bunkering but into dredging, and how he got back into crime because the government failed to protect him after that he dropped his arms and the rival gang refused to do same, and all of those details. As fair as that may want to sound from his perspective, the question then is, Mr. Robinson raised an issue when he said there is no way, just like you said, people around would not be on the know of whatever may have played out. But if you also look at, if we're talking about that as an issue, he also pointed out that how much trust? He alluded to the fact that it's also difficult to trust the process because within the security operatives, within the government operatives, there are people who are working with these guys who may be giving information out. So if a citizen decides to call, maybe you notice a movement in Mbise or in Abombi, so around Ahera, for instance, and you made a call to the police officer. If your call gets into the hand of someone who may be a cover for these guys, what happens to you?
Yeah,
what protection does the law have for you, or does Nigeria have for you?
These issues have always been there. These issues in terms of deficit trust between the citizens and security agencies. We have always interrogated these deficit trusts, and it has always been there. But that does not take away the fact that the citizens or the indigents of certain areas where crime may have occurred, that they don't have some responsibility. That is why most times we say it's a collective responsibility. Traditional rulers are involved, CDCs and so on, to report, movements that are likely to be detrimental. Because we know each other.
Yeah, but reporting it to who?
Reporting it, we have always said it. Report it to if possible, to the highest police officer. There's a divisional police station.
I agree. Let's say I live in an area or in a community where I know that these guys in this compound are into internet fraud, or maybe I know that these guys are into rituals, or I know that these guys are separatists who are armed and who always go out to look for how to create some form of chaos in this community. I know I have this information firsthand. How much trust do I have in the divisional police from the or the state's command, from the commissioner to the sergeant officer in the police command, that if I call them with my phone or I give them information, that the information I'm giving is not going into the hands of a cover for this criminal element in the society?
I won't say that those possibilities are not there, but at least we should be able to manage that risk.
Yeah, how do you manage it? Because you said that you also put in the blame on the office of the citizens because they seem to be failing in their responsibility towards the institutions of government like the Nigerian police force. Maybe if they had given information to them, this would not have been. So how do you trust? Because how much trust, for instance, does the average Nigerian have in any of the institutions in this country?
Well, I've said it that there's a trust deficit.
Yeah.
On the part of the average Nigerian in his relationship with security agencies. But that does not take away the fact that there could be some exceptions. That there's a deficit trust does not mean that you shouldn't carry out your responsibility as a citizen. Now, you did not report, and these things have occurred. As people living in that locality, security people will definitely come in, and every person is a suspect. So what ultimately you are protecting because you are protecting crime.
No, are they protecting crime or they are preserving their lives?
Whichever way, if you look at it on both sides of the coin, you are also protecting crime in the bid to supposedly preserve your life.
But should the citizens be blamed for that?
No, why not? The citizens also have a responsibility. The security agencies that you're seeing there, most of them are not even from those areas. You know the nooks and crannies of those areas. You also have a responsibility as people from those areas to work with security agencies and make sure that the community is free of such criminals.
So a quick one to wrap up on this particular IPOB versus the Nigerian police force in Owerri. Most it is now a recurrent decimal, as a matter of fact, that whenever there is a crime, is it that the police is actually security in the southeast right now? Do you think that the Nigerian government are handling this issue the way they should be handling it?
You know my position on this matter, and my position hasn't changed. My position has been that all this call for releasing to us as Christmas gifts is neither here nor there. We wouldn't want a situation where you release him based on political considerations, and then that further now restricts his rights as a citizen. And that is why we have always opted for the judicial option, which he's already going through. You recall that, in fact, it was a court. A court had earlier freed him. He's a citizen. Yeah. At the end of the day,
he's got about 15 cases in his favor,
we expect that his rights, at the end of the day, having gone through the judicial process. If the judicial process frees him, yes, good and well. It means that they must have used the law and the facts that are available. They must have weighed them, make enough consideration about them, and arrive at their decision. So I think we should allow the judiciary to take its course. Prior to this time, you know that when the former President Muhammadu Buhari, said no, that it should go through court process, and people were not quite comfortable about it, considering the antecedents in their own attitude towards his government. But today we have another government that is in place, the government of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That is a government that is in place, and the judiciary is constant. So allow the judiciary, let him go through the judicial process, and let us know that his rights are protected, he's given fair hearing, and at the end of the day, the preponderance of evidence that's available, side by side with, weighing it against the law. At the end of the day, I'm sure that justice will be done.
All right, let's review.
And served.
Okay. To whom, where and when necessary. In a bid to enhance understanding of the provisions of discrimination against persons with disabilities, Prohibition Act 2018 in the rural communities, the National Commission for Persons with Disabilities and the Leprosy Mission Nigeria has launched the translated and simplified version of the Disability Act in Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba. The simplified version of the Act, which is being translated into 3 major languages, is geared towards orientating the persons with disabilities in rural communities about their rights and how it is protected by the Constitution, as well as how to pursue them. The Executive Secretary of the Commission, Mr. James Lalu, while speaking to newsmen after the official launch in Abuja, said the launching of the Act will equip people with disabilities with more information. The National Coordinator, Leprosy Mission Nigeria, Dr. Sunday Udo, said to the mission and the Disability Commission will work with stakeholders in the communities and government to orientate the communities about the translation of the Act. Here is the report.
The National Orientation Agency is a very comprehensive law already to provide for the rights and dignity of persons with disabilities in Nigeria, and therefore it's very important for the disability community on the one hand to know about their rights and how they can go about pursuing their rights. Then the community in the
domain is aware of what is going on.
Why? Because it's not everybody that can speak English. And look at the act now. You can take the gazette, you can read, but you will not understand what.
Into simplified version in order to cooperate the understanding.
That is not, while it is a good idea, but it's not far-reaching enough. Because if you translate into these 3 major languages alone, you are keeping away, in fact, most of the minority groups. It's not every person and amongst these minorities that understand. Those with that are blind, they are afforded Braille, and there's also platforms for those who are not able understood by virtually every other person. We usually have the pidgin English version of most of these interactions, in addition to making sure that some minority languages, you have the EFIC, they're also a large, the EFIC and the BBO group, they're also a large group of persons. You also have the TIF, you have the TIF, they're also large in their numbers. So as much as possible, I believe that now that the National Orientation Agency is possibly going to partner with them, doorsteps of the citizens, particularly at the grassroots, and furthermore, the community orientation and mobilization officers who are there in the 770, based by the facts and characterized by the fact that some of these persons, once we get the English version and then possibly the pidgin English version and
welcome back to Atlantic Television Network Blowout. Now, let's get on with the rest of our stories. We still have the National Orientation Chairman, the State Director for National Orientation. Deciders of the election winners and choice makers for the people of the country, and suggested that since the judiciary electoral body and add its budget to the judiciary. All right, two key things here. The rule book constitution says 7 days after the CTC copy of a judgment must be delivered to those concerned. We're talking about the Supreme Courts here, not even the lower courts, the apex courts. Go to Imo States, there is that issue there since November 11 election. They have neither released this, or maybe they released it just yesterday or thereabout. Kogi State, the same issue. The court tribunal had to order 48 hours for INEC to release this. Why do you think the INEC and the judiciary seem to be towing a line that creates more doubts? Or this or that?
Almost tending ball is currently squarely in the courts of the Supreme Court to make sure that the CTCs are made available. Like I mentioned, Odenkalo, they have every opportunity to seek administrative redress. There are some reliefs, some of them judicial reliefs. For instance, when things like this happen, you can file for, you can bring an order of mandamus and compel whoever is responsible or ought to have released these judgments to do so. You know, compelling public officers to do certain duties which they may have by commission or omission neglected to do. So there are such judicial have some budgetary constraints. They should make those things known now that we're even in a budgeting citizen, to make sure that if there's a facility deficit, that these things are taken, that they are taken, seem to represent the feeling of most persons, because we Nigerians.
Rita said gender cases are very sensitive issues to the police, and that the police is ever open and ready to respond to the gender cases without delay. The lead director, Gender Mobile Initiative, Omowumi Ogunrotimi, also said Nigeria is at the critical junction, demanding action on the surfacing Nigeria tertiary institutions as a center for power delivering sexual harassment. In an interview with Ogunrotimi, she gave the background of a good learning environment without seduction and sexual harassment. While the director of Gender Unity, University of Abuja, Ibigule Gloria, Assistant Chief Investigation Officer, National Human Rights Commission, Dogo Debbie, and the President's National Female Students Association of Nigeria, Choice Uchenna, have this to say.
Gender is a very sensitive thing, and it's not usually what used to be. When we report such cases, actions are not taken. That is no longer the case. So we are open, and most importantly, with even the court section, the Ministry of Justice, they are even put in place whereby we have swift and quick response in cases of prosecution of such accusers and offenders for action, active action. So this time around, we hope and believe that this whole mechanism will come to an end, at least reduced to the barest minimum.
Today, we bring forth a call for urgency, accountability, and transformative change in the face of pervasive sexual harassment and abuse of office on our campuses. In the wake of a global reckoning against sexual harassment, our nation is at a critical junction that demands our collective action on the emergence of Nigeria tertiary institutions as the center point for power-driven sexual harassment. The very institutions meant to foster education and personal growth have become breeding grounds for abuse. Alarming statistics reveal that 70% of female graduates from Nigerian tertiary institutions have been subjected to sexual harassment. The fight against sexual harassment is not a separate battle, but an integral part of ensuring that the educational journey of everyone, particularly women and girls, is enriching, empowering, and free from violence.
Harassment is power-centered, and when you look at environments of learning, they are characterized by power asymmetry. And so there is actually nothing like a student actually harassing a lecturer. What we have are cases of seduction, where students are trying to entice, lecturers or lure them. And what this means is that such lecturer, having been in a position of locus parentis, has control over the student. And as such, the student, does not have control over the lecturer. So it's different from when you're actually experiencing sexual harassment and you actually lack the capacity to give consent.
And we educate children on sexual and gender-based violence. The first fight against GBV is for the survivor to speak up. And we've not only stopped there, we've also gone to the hospitals, because we know that that is another place where survivors of sexual based violence go to, the hospitals. And we have also educated the caregivers, the health caregivers, on how to handle the victims and survivors of GBV.
And I work to the success to see that there is no form of sexual harassment in my school. first of all, I initiated that policy of no bra, no entry inside the school. Then the